introduce myself. My name is O, H to the O-V. I used to move snowflakes by the OZ. I guess even back then you can call me CEO of the ROC. Fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I be the music biz #1 supplier. Flying in a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. That's right, not DOC, but similar to the letters. No one can do it better. You can blame Sean, but I ain't invented the game. I just rolled the dice trying to get some change. I done came through the block, but I ain't invented the game. Still the vibe is in my veins. Only God can check me. Only God can check me, so I'm gone.
Play it day one with Game Pass.
Start your
So I started when I was 9 years old, racing go-karts, and it just got bigger and faster from there. Moved into single-seater racing cars when I was about 16, and was able to win the McLaren Autosport BRDC Young Driver of the Year award in 2007 in my first year racing in cars. So that kind of springboarded my career. Got to race in British Formula 3 and then moved to the States to follow in my brother's footsteps of trying to race in the IndyCar series. So raced in Indy Lights for a while, and I've been really fortunate enough to be able to race in 3 Indianapolis 500s.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network, and welcome to the Drafting the Circus program, produced by Sinista1 Productions. I want to thank again Forza Motorsport for sponsoring us, and Luis Torres Photography. You're familiar with Luis. He's on our panel every week, but he's an advertiser with us now too. So go ahead and give him a shout. So joining me on the panel, Levi, Luis Torres, Richard Uden. Fellas, how we doing tonight?
Good evening.
Good. How's it going?
Good, good. Well, we've got a couple of very special guests in tonight. Really excited. We've got Don Cusick and Stefan Wilson of Cusick Motorsports, and those guys are getting ready to, or they're preparing to run the Indianapolis 500 in May. They've done this a couple of times together. They're lined up with Dreyer and Reinbold this year, so really excited to have you here. So, fellas, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, no, thanks for having us, guys. We're 74 days away from the Indy 500, but who's counting?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just pumped. I can't wait to get the month of May started, and it's unusual how long we've had to prepare. The last 2 years, it's always been last minute programs that have come together. So, it's a real luxury to have this amount of time to really prepare and really get stuck in.
Yeah. Well, I wish you guys the best as you go through preparations. So Don, let's start with you. Don's the CEO of Cusick Motorsport. Now, Cusick Motorsport is, I mean, you're a race team, but not in the traditional sense that you have a race shop and mechanics and stuff. But you're more of a you work on business to business and bespoke programs and whatnot, and you go in with a technical partner this year, Dreyer and Reinbold, but you've worked with Andretti in the past. You worked with, I think it was Dragon Speed last year. So just tell me a little bit about how the inner workings of Cusick Motorsports work, and some of those programs that you do, because I know you do a lot of work to bring people actively into the racing business.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about for us, is introducing people to the experience. I know my first experience live at the Indy 500 was absolutely amazing. We loved it. More importantly, my wife loved it. So we got that green light to go back last year. And gosh, you know what? I think the second year was even better, because I kind of knew what to expect a little bit more. So got a little bit deeper into it. And then this year it's almost boring because we did our deal so early. But yeah, we've recruited some friends and business associates, and you'll see some new names on the card this year. And of course, some of the guys have been with us for the last 3 years: Sierra Pacific Lumber and Windows, and Carekeepers. They're coming back. Lola Sport, who was one of our original sponsors, is coming back. But yeah, we're really having fun. We're enjoying it. We're exposing new people to IndyCar racing, and we're excited to be with DRR this year. We're really hoping that this is the start of something much bigger, much greater, and many more races to come.
Yeah, I do know that Dry and Reinbold had to kind of give up their full-time program, I think back in 14 or 15, largely due to funding. So now, but they still run a pretty good ship on their Indy 500 only program. So, I mean, with you coming in there, I know like 2 years ago they did 3 or 4 races, but are there any talks about trying to go in and do a bit of a longer season, or maybe even grow back to a full season entry again?
Well, I think, that would be our target. We've talked a little bit with Dennis Reinbold and Brett DeBoard about that. They're actually coming out tomorrow. We're going to show them around Thermal, play some golf with them, and then they're off to the Nitro Series in Glen Helen. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely be our goal, would to partner with them for the longer term, run more races, and ultimately run the 17 race series. That's what we're hoping for.
All right, fantastic. And I hope you guys get there. Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So, Stefan, let's chat with you a little bit. So you've been working with Don for a few years now. How did you guys first initially hook up? Where'd you run into this guy who's such a savvy businessman?
Yeah, no, I'd run the Indy 500 a couple of times. In 2016, I ran the 100th, and then in 2018, led some laps, towards the end of the race, and then, 2019, 2020, I missed, and didn't get an entry and wasn't able to compete. So I pretty much thought my Indy 500 career was over at that point. And I headed out to Thermal. It's a friend. At that point, I was looking to compete in some NASCAR races and on the road courses, and the team I was talking to was just like, "Hey, just see if you can find someone that has an old NASCAR and drive that, and it's pretty much going to be, very similar to what you'd be racing." So I asked around, and someone did know Don that I knew, and essentially asked Don if I could come out and drive his track attack car. So that's where it really started. And I came out just to drive the car, and Don was all about it. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know Don, and he's let me just drive his NASCAR track attack car without even knowing me. And after that, we got talking, and it turns out that Don was just a huge Indy 500 fan, and just asking me all kinds of questions about the Indy 500. And from there, I left Thermal, went home, and it was probably about a month later, Don asked me about getting tickets to the Indy 500 if I knew anyone, and I set him up with some the group that I usually purchase sweet tickets for partners, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to get a couple extra so you can come as well." And I'm like, it's not kind of the seat I want the Indy. uh, so I don't know if I can go and just watch, after being in it. And he's like, well, let's put you in it. And I'm like, I mean, I appreciate it, Don, but it's it's kind of, it's a tough deal to put together. It's really, and the budgets are kind of crazy. It's like, no, let's figure out a way to do it. And I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe the trust and the faith that Don put in me. I'm so grateful for his trust and just wanting to do this and do this with me. So, from there we that was pretty much like April, 15th. At that point, every team had got their driver lineup set, and I'd heard about there being an extra Andretti entry open. Made some calls, and we put the deal together in like 10 days, maybe less than that. It was pretty wild. So we announced the deal on like May 4th, and then we're in the car like May 15th after 2-year hiatus, not being in a car, literally a car of any kind, and then just jumped right in. So, that month went really, really well up until race day. We had some issues on race day with a brake, front brake failure. So on the first pit stop, which ended our day. And then, we spent the whole year working together to come back, and we got to put that deal together again. Unfortunately, it was last minute, even though our intention was to get it done nice and early. It was just the Indy 500 has been so popular. It's been in such high demand, and the team, there's just not a lot of entries left, available these days because there's so many full-time entries. So we worked around the clock for pretty much the whole year and was able to put something together like pretty last minute, and it was a big help to the series as well, because at that point they'd only got 32 cars. We helped the Indy 500 keep its tradition of running 33 cars by putting a last minute deal together. I think that time it may have even been later, like May 10th, that deal came together. So, that first time out on the track, we were still missing parts off the car. They were still building it. So again, it was not ideal. And then we're like, okay, we've got to correct this. We cannot be last minute again. And this is probably the earliest I've ever had an Indy 500 deal locked in. And we got that all put together. It was the team that we really wanted to work with the most. We came out of May 2022 and was like, okay, we looked at the whole grid, looked at our options, and we're like, this has the most potential. As you've already hit on, Drive Ryan Bolt, they've ran a full-time entry before. They can run additional races. They've got the chassis, they've got all the infrastructure. And I think we've worked really hard as well on bringing partners into this program, and with Don's commitment as well. I hope there's a long-term future here for myself and for Cusick Motorsports.
Absolutely. Now, Don, you indicate your guys' headquarters are out there at the Thermal Club, which was largely unknown to IndyCar fans until this year when we had the off-season test up there. Now everybody is quite familiar with Thermal there, and there's some talk about some folks think we ought to put a race there, but obviously, there's no grandstands, there's not enough public restrooms, and I just kind of wonder, as you being one of the members there, what would be the thought of the members of having a public event there at the race course? It seemed like some people might be up for it, but others might say, hey, no, this is we paid good money to have our private club here. I mean, sure. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think IndyCar or Thermal could pull that off? Or
it's a great question. I will tell you that there was a lot of skepticism right up to the day those cars got on the track, but that was all removed almost immediately when the members saw the cars and got to interact with the teams and the drivers. It was spectacular. So I do talk a lot with the owners of the Thermal Club and the guys that kind of run the interactions with IndyCar. And I can tell you that they're definitely talking about bringing a race out here. They're already talking about modifying the track to race, make it race friendlier. I think it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think I can speak for the members and say we loved it. It was a fantastic experience, and the owners out here, as well as the IndyCar folks, I think all want to try to put something together. So we'll see. You know, there's a lot of water that's got to go under the bridge to make something like that happen. But I'm fairly certain that if nothing else, they're going to be back for another preseason practice next year. And, you know, hopefully we put a race together. I think it'd be fantastic.
I think it'd be fun. It's a beautiful facility. It's just, you know, it's just a lovely part of the country as well. So,
Or in that time of year. So that always helps.
oh yeah. So, Stefan, this is a question I like to pose to drivers that don't necessarily drive a full-time schedule, because, you know, I know that everybody's still got to put food on the table and make the rent, right? So I know, like, you
Absolutely.
know, like my friend Pippa Mann, she works for Porsche Academy as an instructor. Sage Karam is a wrestling coach in the local public school system up there in Pennsylvania. And I swear I saw Connor Daly bagging groceries at the Kroger one time, but it might have just been a guy that looked like Connor Daly. So I guess my question to you is, I mean, I know you do a lot of work. You do a lot of work for Don. You know, you do a lot of public appearances. You do a lot of stuff for sponsors, and you do a lot of charity work as well. I've seen you out there supporting like Gleaners and some of those charities. But do you hold down a day job?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it a day job, but I am pretty much working around the clock, mainly focused on stuff for Indy, working on bringing partners into Cusick Motorsports, and then also delivering on some of the partnership deliverables. But you know, I would say my day job, as you would put it, would be you know, coaching. You know, that's sort of been, you know, in that hiatus of not running the 500 in 2019 and 2020. I had to really, you know, dedicate myself to, you know, other work to put food on the table, like you just said. So, you know, coaching in the Ferrari Challenge Series, coaching in, you know, other Road to Indy series. I've done it all really. So, you know, I would like to get to a point where I could just focus completely 100% on racing. But right now we're just, you know, we're only doing the one race, and that leaves me a lot of free time. You know, I'm hoping that we can get a bit busier, and you know, like I said, I can just focus on the full race schedule. But yeah, I mean, the coaching is, you know, most drivers these days, that's going to be how they, you know, pay their bills.
Absolutely. So let's go back to 2018 for a moment, okay? 2018, you found yourself in the lead of the Indy 500 with like 5 laps to go. Obviously, you're watching your fuel run down to nothing, and I guess I just can imagine you're like, God, I really need a yellow, but I don't want to wish harm on one of my competitors. I mean, what is that? What is that? What is that feeling like, just to be leading the biggest race in the world, knowing you got to pit and just hoping something happens?
Yeah, I mean, it is wild. Like, you know, we'd put ourselves in a good position. The car was great. I mean, the car was handling so well that year. We didn't have the qualifying speed, but the car and race trim was handling great. And we, you know, we ran sort of mid-pack all day. And then we came down to, you know, we were working on our fuel strategy really well. And in fact, earlier in the race, we'd gone to a fuel strategy that would have been put us right at the front. And then I think it was Elio crashed on like lap 154 and just totally shot that out of the water. Ran that plan and that strategy. So because I remember thinking in the car, I'm like, wow, like I'm pretty sure we only need to do one more stop, and I'm pretty sure everyone ahead of me only has to do 2 more stops, and I'm like, this is looking good. And then it went yellow, and then I'm like, okay, well that's gone, because now everyone can make it on one as well. So, you know, as it's boiling down, you know, there was another yellow came out on like one. I think it was actually that yellow. It extended, and it got to like 161, and we pitted under yellow. We set back off again, and, you know, on the restart. And I was conservative all day. And at that point, you know, we were trying to make it to the end, but knew realistically we weren't going to make it. And then the yellow came out on 188 or something like that. And at that point, I was second, right behind Serbia. And I was like, okay, well, I know what to expect. I know I'm gonna get past Serbia into turn one. It's just like it's inevitable with the draft at that point. So on the restart, executed well, got a good jump, pulled out to pass Serbia, and coming down into turn one, I expected to get by Serbia, and I had. In the last second, the spotter called, "Free wide, you're on the outside." And I'm like, "Free wide?" And Harvey had got such a monster run and had made it, and he'd gone inside of Serbia, so now we're free wide. And at that point, I was just like, I'm turning in. Like, if we're wrecking, we're wrecking, but I'm not going to lift, to try and take the lead of the Indy 500. And turned in, the other guys lifted, held the position, came out of two, and it's just clear road. Like all day, I'd been stuck under, rear wings of guys, just having to deal with dirty air, and the dirty air was so bad. Just having to just manage that gap to the car in front, and just, trying to cope with how much aero wash there was. And at that moment, there was just clear track ahead of me, and you could tell it's like at the end of the Indy 500, the tracks, there's bits of trash. It's got that scene. You can just tell that it's at the very end of the Indy 500, and you just like, holy cow! Like this is my dream about to come true here. Like I'm leading the Indy 500, and I have a shot at potentially winning it if a yellow comes out. And I knew I didn't have enough fuel to get to the end without a yellow, but it was nice to get those free laps in and put ourselves in position that if it had gone yellow, then we would have won. So it was bittersweet, because you come away and you're like, man, I hope that is not the closest that I get to winning the Indy 500. I hope that I get closer than that.
Would we?
What's that, sorry?
I said, had you have won it, we wouldn't be having this conversation together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Don, I wanted to ask you about since you're, somebody newer into the series, right? And we've seen more and more guys kind of more teams get, throw their hat in the ring, get in the series. I believe we're up to 27 full-time cars now. And I know you're kind of thinking in the back of your head, you'd like to be a full-time team as well at some point in time. But I'm just kind of wondering what's your general thought about the overall health of the series? Because there are things about it that look very good, like the number of entries, but then we still struggle at attendance at some places like, Texas and some of these other places. And the TV ratings still, lag behind the other guys. But how do you feel about the future of the series here in the next 5-10 years?
That's a tough one for me. Having been a lifelong fan, my dad and I used to go watch it on closed circuit TV in Los Angeles, because I didn't want to wait a week for it to come on Wide World of Sports. So, back in the Chris Economaki days.
Yeah.
Back in the front engine roadster days, I'll really date myself. So for me, I've always been a huge fan. There's competition, that's for sure. And it's talked about, and I guess from my seat, I'm amazed that people don't really know about IndyCar racing, even people that race. There's people out here at Thermal that had no idea. And then, they watch a race and they go, wow, they're super competitive. A lot of people watch St. Pete and we're pretty excited about it because it's very competitive racing and it's good racing. And, it's also 10% of the cost of running a Formula One team. So,
yeah,
from an ownership standpoint, that's a real attraction, obviously. I think that it needs more stories like ours. people that are, really came from nothing and got ourselves into IndyCar racing and are now this year for the first year going to be competitive. I think stories like that help. I think they need to be told. But I think, if a common guy can walk in pretty much off the street and race at the Indy 500, that's a pretty compelling story for race fans. So, I like where they're going. I think it's going to get better. I think they're doing some of the right things that are going to help lead it down that path. And they sure got a big cheerleader in me, I can tell you that.
Oh, absolutely. So now I don't want to dominate the whole interview, so I want to open it up to you other three guys there, Richard, Louise, Lee. Any of you guys got a question for either Don or Stefan?
I have a quick question for Stefan. So
Yeah, go for it.
as an engineer working on these cars, on everything, every series you can imagine, we look at data in the minutiae detail. So we'll look at like gear shift analysis. I mean, a gear shift may take a tenth of a second at most, and we will spend an hour agonizing over every little sort of minute detail of a gear shift. And talking to a driver.
You broke up there for me. Hello?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we're looking at like this data in really, really sort of thousandths of a second piece of information. And, you mentioned that like when you got into the lead of the Indy 500, is there this sort of sense of like serenity and slowness? Or is it still this sort of like, the image of a duck on a pond, on top it looks great, but underneath its legs are going all over the place?
Yeah, great question. It was a moment of like serenity because, as I was saying, when you're in the dirty air all weekend, all race, all race long, when you get five cars deep, I mean, you just create those cars ahead of you just create this huge bubble, and you're trying to skate through with 200, 300 pounds, maybe even less than that, less downforce. So of course it starts doing, things that you don't like it to do. It gets pretty evil. So, it creates this bubble and you just can't get, any closer to that car ahead without just losing the grip. So, you get into the lead and it was the best the car felt all day because it was just, there was no one on the track ahead of me. There was no dirty air and the car was just stable. We were pulling away because all day I felt like we had a fast race car. We were just stuck in a bad track position, and that is kind of ever since they brought out the aero kits and then they added the aero screen, it's really made it very difficult to race. Like you've created this, very the car's very heavy now and very grip limited, and we don't have as much downforce as we did in say 2015, 2016 and 2017, where you saw crazy amount of passes because those cars just had more downforce with those their rear bumper pods and the aero kits, the old aero kits, I should say, the manufacturer aero kits. So yeah, I know that moment of taking the lead, it was the best moment or the best the car felt all day. It just it was fast, and we were we had the full downforce level. There was no dirty air, so it was nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the downforce because everybody thinks, because NASCAR doing this moment on the short tracks, running these low downforce packages. Oh, low downforce, the cars are going to slide, and it's going to be really, really close racing. But it doesn't always work that way because the drivers are on edge. They're like, they don't have that sense of commitment. They don't think, well, if I make a move here, I know my car's going to stick. They're like, I'm going to make a move, but I don't know if I'm going to come out the other side of this corner right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just don't have the grip. So, and then when you're lacking downforce, you don't suck up as well because you're lacking drag. So down the straights, you're not getting as big a run. And then in the corners, you have to, because you're so limited on downforce, the dirty air plays a bigger role or a bigger effect. So I think on road courses, I think less downforce is great, but at Indy, honestly, like I'm not complaining because it makes it hard. I mean, racing the 500 now is I think, in my opinion, way harder than it was even 3 or 4 years ago, because of that very reason. So I'm not complaining. It's just this is the nuances that it's now now involved with racing the 500. It's a little bit different. It's not like it was in 2017 when you saw just like record number of passes. So I quite like it. I mean, it's a challenge. It's really hard to get right. It's takes a lot more skill in the car. It stops my grandma from being able to do the same thing as me, if that makes sense. So that's always good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you know, it's still, you see these people say, oh, you know, these cars are easy to drive, or the guy that's running, you know, 20th in a Formula One race off 30th in a NASCAR race, and oh, they're terrible drivers. None of them are terrible drivers. You know, it annoys me so much when I hear people say these. They're still, you know, they're still in the top 0.5% of drivers in the world. They're just maybe not as good, and not everybody can be as good as a Lewis Hamilton or a Will Power or, you know, one of these guys. It's, you know, it gets me going.
And it's the circumstances as well that you dealt with. You know, you put Mick Schumacher in a Mercedes 2 years ago, and he wins the championship. You know, who knows? You know, but everyone's written him off now. I'm not saying he should be written off, because I think he's a very talented driver, but he is. And, you know, and you know, it's very easy to say from the couch, and you know, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes when I'm watching, you know, college basketball, and I'm like, why didn't he make that shot? You know, like, oh, I could have made that shot, you know, but so we're all guilty of it to a certain degree, you know, but people don't know any better. I don't know any better when it comes to basketball. So there you go.
Fickle world, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah. Louise or Lee, you have anything?
Yeah, I have one. I think it boils down to, of course, today it's confirmed that Ryan Hunter-Reay will be joining you guys in the organization. After being partnered with Andretti and now this year with Ryan Reinbold, how important is to have just one driver to concentrate when it comes to research and also building the team? Because Ryan Reinbold has had the speed with like Sage and also Santino over the years. What's going to be instrumental for this season to step up to that next level to compete with the Ganassis and McLarens?
Yeah, I think, you know, they were really fast last year in the last couple of years. They've been really fast in the race trim, but they lacked in qualifying, and that's something that they really focused on for 2022. And you saw it; it really paid dividends. They qualified really well, and then it meant they were starting so much further up the field, and they have now, you know, equally fast race cars. They ran really strong. So I think, you know, I'd like to say that, you know, with myself and Ryan, we are so similar build, you know, so similar weight distribution in the car, which is helpful. And just from my experience working with Ryan before in 2 years at Andretti, I felt like we were both wanting the same things from the car. You know, we both we made changes on our car that he adopted on his car, and vice versa. So for me, I feel like we're wanting the similar things from the car, and I think that's going to be a benefit, a positive. You got two guys, you know, working in the same direction, pulling in the same direction. You know, we're both hopefully not going in different directions. So as an engineer, Rich, I'm sure you can appreciate that if everyone's pulling in the same direction, it's just way more productive, way more efficient. So yeah, I think, you know, at the same time, just having his experience, obviously he's an Indy 500 winner. And, you know, like I said, working with him in the past, I know when I drove at Andretti, the race car felt great. It felt amazing. And so we know what a good car has felt like before. And I think we can hopefully bring some of that experience and you know, hopefully it's just fine, detailed improvements. Hopefully we're not throwing the kitchen sink at it.
All right.
Speaking of kitchen sink, I'll ask. Sorry, I'll ask.
Go right ahead, Lee.
A quick one. So this year you've got a lot more lead time going into this. It's not just a couple days or a month in before time. What are you doing with this extra time that you have to time manage yourself? Are you using sims to get ready for this stuff? Or what are you doing to prep yourself? Because it's not a go situation. It's a little bit more relaxed. So are you focusing more on the sim stuff? Sitting down with the engineers to really fine tune that car. What are some of your prep work getting into this?
So mostly physical fitness. I've been physically fit enough to drive the car the last 2 times, but weight plays a big role in it too. I mean, they in IndyCar they only weigh the car up to 185 pounds. So in terms of let me explain that. So like if the driver weighs 120, they'll add 65 pounds to the car, but they're not weighing the car up to, let's say, the heaviest driver at 200 pounds. So I'm normally 200 pounds. Like I'm 6 foot, almost 6'4". Just normally that's my weight. So I've got to. It's been nice to be able to have this extra lead time and just focus on, leaning off as much as possible and getting down to that 185, which I'm almost there, so that's good. It's that in previous years. I mean, it's really difficult. It takes a long time. I mean, it's taken me like 3 months to lose the extra weight and get down to that level, because I don't want to give up any kind of level advantage, even though it's a small, minute detail. But it's nice to be able to focus on that. And at the same time, we're back in December, we did the seat fitting and got everything from that standpoint squared away. That's something that we were doing on May 11th, May 12th, the last 2 years. So it's nice to know that, hey, if we don't get this quite right, we've got 5 months to still get this, perfect this. Whereas before it was like, I hope it's right, because that's what you got. So it's just from a level of preparedness, it's nice to not be in a rush, and at the same time, just being able to, start building that relationship with the engineer, making sure that we're clicking, we're speaking the same language, and at the same time, reviewing video. I'm getting onboards from previous years with the teams that I've driven for, and just reviewing anything, seeing what I can learn, seeing what other drivers have done, and trying to take notes from that and build. So we can be prepared for any kind of situation that comes up in May. And I will be doing sim work, and there's also pit stop practice that we can do as well, with the way that Ryan Reinbold has a pit stop car that they dedicated to working on the pit stop, from both more for the crew, but it's still nice to go through the motions. But Don will tell you as well, his extra time that he's had, it's not been a mad fresh to get ready.
Well, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Don.
At dinner tonight.
I have one more quick question for you, probably more towards Don, actually. So, obviously, having lived over in the US now for a number of years, and started to watch IndyCar a lot more, it's a fantastic series. It's good racing, unpredictable racing. The cars are getting more and more advanced, and with the hybrid technology coming along, they're continuing up that ladder. And with the fantastic tracks you have in the US, unfortunately IndyCar, half of them doesn't go to. What the potential there is huge for IndyCar to be, in the same breath, in my mind, as the second rung of motorsport globally behind Formula One in terms of its viewership and spectators. I mean, back in the UK, Sky Sports have started to cover it and gave some really good exposure to it, but it's still not quite that. What do you think it needs to get to that next level? And I know NASCAR pays a lot of my bills right now, but for my money, an IndyCar is a better series to watch from a spectator standpoint than Cup racing.
Yeah, interesting point. They do run some interesting venues in IndyCar that probably aren't the biggest spectator markets. I think that could be part of it. And it's like anything. You're competing for a big market. A lot of my friends now know Formula One and follow Formula One because of the Drive to Survive series. I think you're seeing a lot of that happen in a lot of other sports too. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I hope to be in a position in the not too distant future to be involved in these discussions and maybe help to influence and shape some of it. Because I do think it's a great series, and I do agree with you that it's an open wheel. It's certainly the second best series that there is. Yet it is all domestic. It's not international anymore, and so they do need to get some of that international exposure.
I mean, I remember back in when would it have been? Frank, you probably know when it was. It was Bourdais' first ever win. It was at Brands Hatch, so about 2002,
Should have
3-ish.
been 2003, 3 or 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2003.
yeah, 2003. Yeah.
Yeah, so good being there. Damon Hill was handing out the prizes. Paul Tracy, I think, blew up mid-race, but it was like £50 ticket or £30 ticket all day. There's a load of speeder series going on there. I even won the fastest lap on the Sky Electrics competition there, so that's my claim to fame on that day. but you know, it's great. It was so good, so good.
Yeah.
And then you go to the Formula One stuff, and you're paying 5-10 times the ticket price, and you get to see a couple of races a day, and then you got 3 hours to get out of the parking lot. You know, but the Brands Hatch stuff and the international stuff on IndyCar was fantastic.
Yeah.
So good.
There's a lot of talk about Formula One coming in here and invading the U.S. and maybe cutting into some of the IndyCar fan base and revenue and things of that nature. I'm not sure I think that's true. I mean, for me, I think that might almost help just because of what you said. It's exposing the open wheel racing and IndyCar is certainly a better value than Formula One from a standpoint. And and even a race car owner standpoint, of course.
Yeah, ask Michael that question.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. A lot of you mentioned these new tracks that Formula One's coming to. A lot of them are the great venues. They look fantastic on TV, which is obviously their main purpose. But some of them are almost like soulless in a way. They're just like
soulless.
This made for TV movie almost. And and Stefan, you'll have been to some of these old, some of the old classic like Croft and Thruxton, and they're great places. They smell amazing, and you go to these new venues and they're just meh.
Yeah, the stadium.
Yeah,
venue,
no, I mean,
they just ran.
I saw some of the other days talking about British Grand Prix being at London. Streets, and I'm like, no, just stop. Like it looked like it was a street course made up around a car park, and I'm just like, no, it doesn't need this anymore. Like we've got plenty of street circuits that work for the most part, but you can't get rid of the classic circuits. And to your point, like I'm glad that we've got Laguna on the schedule. We need to get back to Watkins Glen at some point. We've got Road America that was off the calendar for a long time, so that's good that that's there. Some other classics. I think we should be at Phoenix. So I think there's room on the schedule to improve, and I think that I think the new series, the new docu-series that IndyCar's working on with CW and Vice is super important. That debuts on April 27th, and that is going to be something that really needs to work, because if that can catch fire like Drive to Survive did, then that'll change the landscape of the series for sure in a big way. And I think unfortunately this viewpoint doesn't go well with manufacturers. We need a third manufacturer, but I think we need to go away from the norm, and I think we need loud fire-breathing dragon engines, V8s or something, just that doesn't jive with manufacturer needs, wanting it to be green and hybrid, but F1's doing that, WEC is doing that. And what got me so into racing in the first place, or what got a lot of us into racing, was just the noise and the sound coming from the engines, and how it just sent goosebumps up our arm, right? So I don't know, it's tough. I think that would be, the old Indy cars from the early 2000s. Those just sounded incredible. And I think if we could bring that noise back, I think it would be something that differentiates IndyCar from other open wheel series in the world.
Bring back the Offenhauser.
There you go.
All right. Well, listen, Stefan, Don, I really appreciate you guys coming on. And, I don't know if Don is one of the most generous people in the world. So you have my Cusick Racing shirt on here. Don was kind enough to donate a bunch of those to a fan group that I help run on Facebook. So, Don, I want to thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Which that's kind of how I started talking to Don. And really, I want to wish you guys the best at Indianapolis, and I hope that you can, have a great month of May and keep the program going. And we'd love to have you back on again. Maybe after the 500, maybe you can come on and tell us what it's like to win the Indy 500. So
drink that milk. Drink that milk.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so we're gonna go to commercial real briefly. Keith, you take us to commercial, and Don, Stefan, have a great night. Thanks again, and
guys.
again,
Thanks for having us on, guys.
The best. Yep.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Are we clear yet, Keith? All right, we're back. Again, just want to thank our guests, Don Cusick and Stefan Wilson. So, make sure you follow their progress at Indianapolis. You ought to see them on the CW program when that debuts in April as well. So, Lee, we got the NHRA, and I said that correctly. I didn't.
Not the NRA
or hockey,
NHRA
So, but we got a season underway, Gator Nationals. So, take us through it a little bit. I saw the action was on Fox TV all day, from Fox 1 to regular Fox. Good coverage. So, let's get the rundown from the Gator Nationals.
It was a great weekend. Friday afternoon, Keith, if you want to pop that graphic up real quick, Toyota came out with the Junior Roadster. They introduced it Friday during the fan portion of it. So NHRA's had the Junior Dragster program running for 20 plus years now. So JR Todd, he's one of the funny car guys. He is collaborating and working with the NHR to do the Junior Roadster series, which is funny cars, and Toyota has come up with with their version of it, and it's a great little introductory platform for the kids. Cost effective, it looks really good. Obviously built safety in mind for the young drivers and stuff. So that was a great kickoff to the weekend to see what Toyota is doing for the the future of the driving sport in NHRA. So very nice to see them do that. And from what I've heard, it's taken off like wildfire. And then going into Saturday, we had what was we call it the call out. It's kind of it goes back to the roots of drag racing when you called out a competitor driver and you ran up there for some bragging rights and a little bit of coin in your pocket. And that happened in Top Fuel. Josh Hart actually ended up winning it out of the 8 drivers. He won Saturday night's call out special, which was which is good because Josh is a pretty new driver. He didn't really do so good on Sunday. He got knocked out in qualifying against Tony Schumacher. So he didn't really make it out of the first round. But yeah, it was a good weekend all around. Results wise, in Funny Car, which are Top Fuel, which is the top series of the sport. It's the dragsters, as we call them. Mike Salinas from Scrappers Racing Dragsters. He beat out Steve Torrance from Capco Racing Torrance Racing, which was a pretty good showdown. I thought it was a really great race, very neck and neck. I mean, it was Torrance won on miles per hour, but it's not always about how fast it is. It's who gets to the stripe first. And it was 0.005 of a second difference between the two cars. So that was a pretty good race to see. Funny Car wise, Tony Stewart Racing, he got in the win circle this weekend with Matt Hagan, his Funny Car driver. Him and J.R. Todd, who I was just talking about with his involvement in the Toyota series. They went head to head in the final round, and Matt Hagan ended up winning that. Another close race. It was a couple 10,000ths between the two of them, but the Matt Hagan's Dodge Power Brokers Hellcat RT pulled out against J.R. Todd's Toyota. Pro Stock, number one qualifier, Troy Coughlin Jr. He went from number one qualifier all the way to winning the race the weekend against Mason McGaugh. That was a really good race. I always like the Pro Stocks because the racing, they're not as fast, but the racing's always just as tight. These guys really fight for what they bring to the racetracks. And it was a really good race. It was super fast. I think they were only Troy Coughlin only won by like a mile an hour. It was a really quick race. And then the other division that comes up, the big four, is Pro Stock motorcycles and Gage Harana. And I talked about this kind of at the beginning of the season. Gage Harana, he runs for Vance and Hines, and Vance and Hines has that new Suzuki Hayabusa that came out this year, and he brought that brand new bike to Victory Lane. He qualified number one and brought it all the way to Victory Lane against Andy Smith, which was another really great race in my mind, because we got to see what that Hayabusa could do. It was fast. That thing was ridiculously fast. I was blown away at how fast it was and how well it was controlled. I mean, two wheels at 200 miles an hour, you're out in the open. There's nothing around you. You're not protected from anything or anybody. So you're feeling the brunt force of everything, and control and handling is top notch in that stuff. And to see that Hayabusa run that way, I really think that, Vance and Hines, they may have a repeat from last year because they won it last year. But with that new Hayabusa, I think they're going to be they're going to be contention again this year on that new design. And the big talk of the weekend was Tony Stewart. He ran a top alcohol dragster this weekend. He did not. He red lighted in round 2, so he really didn't get. He just got about 3 or 4 passes down the track, but he made it to round 2, so that was a good start for him. I watched a couple post race interviews. He was happy with his performance, and the team was pretty happy with the performance. For his first, big race under the Gator National lights. So it was a good weekend. I'm glad it's off to a good start, and looking forward to seeing what the rest of the season brings us.
Yeah. So where are we off to next?
You'd have to ask me. I just had to tip my tongue, and I totally forgot. So we're heading out. It's a West Coast swing now, just like every other motorsport.
Phoenix next.
That's it, Phoenix. So we're heading out to the West Coast swing.
Glad Richard knows what's going on. Yeah.
Oh,
so.
yeah. It'll be Phoenix, and I think we're off to Sonoma or Fontana next, and then we'll come back. We'll hit Vegas, and then we'll be back down this way on the mid coast and the East Coast. So be a good season.
All right, yeah. So now let's talk about NASCAR. We've got a few minutes left, but the race this week was it was a rerun of last week's race, right?
Kind of was a rerun. people want to chastise Harrison Burton, all because he had a flat tire. People are questioning if he's cup material and all that jazz. But the big talk is that William Byron went back to back. I still
Right.
stand that Rudy Fugle had a big role in that again. And the question will remain: can they keep this up after the spring? We saw the last couple of years they get off to a good start in the spring, but then one momentum breaker. Last year was Darlington with Joey Logano. They're completely MIA, so we'll see. But the biggest grandiose of the whole thing is that Hendrick Motorsports got 2007 all over again with a hefty penalty.
Yeah, very, very hefty penalty. So they confiscated with the louvers from the cars.
The Lavore, yep.
Lavore, yeah. So exactly which portion of the car is that, Richard?
So that's the you can see on Louise's little photograph there in his background. That's the two vents which sit, there you go, either side of the hood. They're an exit or a cooling duct for the engine, basically. And what teams used to do in the past was apply tape to the front of the grille to control the engine temperatures. But with this,
yeah.
with these now, you don't have to do that. And these are a controlled part by NASCAR, and the teams aren't allowed to modify it. Now, Hendrick's argument is that there's been some issues with the consistency of the manufacturing, and the parts that they received didn't meet the drawings that NASCAR provided to the manufacturer, so they modified them to meet the drawing specification. I don't think that's quite what happened, but
yeah. So
that's Hendrick's defense anyway.
Didn't Gibbs have a similar thing with that same area of the car with tape?
That was a physical.
That was tape actually on the tape for Gibbs last year was on the in front of the right side of the wheel well.
Okay, all right. So either way, they levied some pretty serious penalties on these guys.
Yeah,
both financially and taking some points away.
Yeah, not just Hendrick, but also Justin Haley's 31 team got penalized. And right now, Justin Haley's had negative points. Alex Bowman went from the regular season points lead down to outside the top 20, which promotes Kevin Harvick as your regular season points leader after 4 rounds. Byron remains ineffective, to be honest, at this point, because he's got those 2 wins.
In the grand scheme of things, you'd expect all of those Hendrick guys to win races throughout the season. The playoff point deduction is minimal. The financial aspect, but again, this is Hendrick Motorsports.
He's got a couple dollars in the bank. Yeah,
they've probably got a danger money pot kicking around that they play these things off every year, and it's probably taken most of that up. So they'll probably be a pretty good behavior for the rest of the year. But come the race at Phoenix, they put in, NASCAR supplied them with new louvers, and they ran with spec parts that NASCAR provided, and they didn't do too badly, did they?
No, not at all.
They pretty much maxed out on points. Preparation.
You wonder, being cynical, which, as most of you know, is a great attribute of mine. That maybe this was the thing that NASCAR was meant to find, and some of the other things that they've got squirreled away were this distracted NASCAR from finding out what was really going on under the hood. Because teams have done that in the past. They deliberately make something so obvious that they can't find, or they'll have to find it, and they concentrate all the time on fixing that issue. That the other issues that are really making the big difference to the car's performance are hidden away, and the governing body doesn't look at it. But the performance was pretty telling, and there's very few things that you can trick up on these cars these days that have such an effect that those Hendrick cars dominated those last 2 races anyway. So I think there's they're obviously doing a very, very good job and doing something right now, and it's for the rest of us to catch up with them, and the rest of the teams out there to catch up with them. But it's a big no, and NASCAR are drawing a line in the sand that they did last year with similar infractions, and you do not modify supplier parts. So they're being consistent. At least you can't criticize them for that.
Right. So then I guess the other story coming out is Denny Hamlin intentionally putting Chastain in the wall, and then pretty much bragging about it on his podcast. He got a fine. So, but I don't know why these guys can't just play nice. But it always seemed like somehow when you have these kind of somebody mad at somebody, it seemed like Ross Chastain is involved in there more often than not. I guess I don't know if he just rubs everyone the wrong way. And that's not a a pun about him rubbing the wall of Martinsville, but
Rowdy.
Terrible.
Terrible.
I would say save that one-liner podcast, but I wouldn't even make it on there.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, where are we off to next, Louise?
We're off to Atlanta, where if you're going to make a pit stop, you must do it at the end of the backstretch, not going into turn 4.
Yeah,
So
I saw that. Yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, if you have a bad pit stop, you're hosed. Unscheduled pit stop, you're hosed.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Some of the there was a little. What was going on at Phoenix where they didn't give drivers instructions how to get out onto the track from the garage? Everybody got lost.
Yeah, that was during practice.
Yeah, right at the start of the weekend. Yeah, so it's just kind of funny that. So now we're gonna move the pit lane entrance in Atlanta and see what see what happens there. But Atlanta's been a pretty entertaining race the last couple of years since they reconfigured the track there. I mean, I think so anyway, because for a while it was just pretty much standard. So
we don't want
a cold one though.
Yeah, it'd be a cold one. Yeah, I mean it's this particular the March Atlanta race has been snowed out before.
Highs of 47. So yeah.
Oh, fun Washington weather.
Washington weather.
Pretty much. It's not raining, so it's not real Washington weather.
All right,
but it's still cold.
All right, so Louise, you guys want to pick a winner for Atlanta?
Go ahead, Louise. I'll let you go first.
I'll go with Ross Chastain in this one.
Unless Denny Hamlin gets to him first.
I'm going with Chastain's teammate and Daniel Suarez. I think he's gonna have a good weekend.
All right, I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson because I think the Hendrick cars are still just that good. Now, Richard, we have Formula One this weekend coming up?
Yeah, we're in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And so, street circuit, high-speed street circuit. See if we can, at least make Schumacher won't write a car off this year. And the Guns won't have anything to complain about. But, it'll be, second race. See, you can't really look past Red Bull after their dominant performance in Bahrain. Is it Ferrari's opportunity to at least look like they know what they're doing? But Charles Leclerc is already on a 10th-place grid penalty for electronics changes after failing both units in Bahrain, and they're only allowed to run 2 units per season. So, he's taken 10th-place grid penalty now, and if he has another failure, that's going to be another 10 places later in the season. So, these grid penalties are racking up early in the season for Ferrari, so there must be a concern there. And can Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso keep up their impressive start to the season? And, can Mercedes are promising visual changes to the car over the coming races. So maybe moving away from the 0 side pod configuration that we've been talking about for last year or so. Personally, I don't believe it's that, but maybe that does have an impact on other areas of the car that they can develop. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens out there.
Lewis was vocally unhappy with, he said they didn't listen to him when he told them what changes. That's
there's as much frustration as there is truth in that.
Exactly.
They've been listening to him pretty damn well for the last 11 years, so I'd be surprised if they suddenly forgot what his phone number is.
Yeah, I mean, he's only won 100 races, so
exactly.
Yeah,
they got
I think somebody had speculated. I read this today, and I thought it was actually kind of funny. They said, if Max wins every race, he'll sew up the championship by the time they get to Zandvoort. And they said at that point they could put Ricardo in the car, and then Red Bull could finish first, second, and third in the championship. I said, wow, you're giving. I mean, Red Bull's good this year, but I mean,
I mean, that's what Ron Downs would have loved with Hakkinen, Andretti, and Senna in '93. But
so
yeah,
I tell you.
But this is closest. I think this is the closest field to. I remember it, Frank. I'm sure you can. The '88 season.
Yeah.
When with Senna and Prost winning almost every race apart from that, Monza race, which was meant to be after Enzo, I think.
Yeah, the one Ferrari cheated to win.
I think this is closer. Now, you've obviously seen, years in the past where, teams have been dominant early on the box, but there's something about this Red Bull and the team and Max and Checo. They're just, they seem something pretty ominous about this, really. That we haven't seen in a long,
and we're only one race in, and we're having these conversations. It's kind of really got to be demoralizing to the other. Yeah, I know. Got to be demoralizing to the other 18 guys there. So, all right. So, who do y'all want to pick?
It looked like they were breaking a sweat.
Who do you guys want to pick for second place, then? Because we are just about out of time. Since everyone picks Max to win. All right. So, who do you like for second place, Richard?
So it's Carlos Sainz.
All right, Louise.
I'm gonna go with Paris. Just let's see if they could actually go 1-2 all season, which I doubt, but we'll keep it optimistic.
It could happen, yeah. And Lee, who you like to say? You're taking Nico Hulkenberg every race, right?
No, Kevin Magnussen.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
No, Kevin Magnussen. So I know Richard's gonna love that one. Yeah, I'll go with Kevin again this weekend.
Okay, and that'll leave me, Alonso. We'll say Alonso gets one more step up from last week. So, but we are out of time. We're in overtime here. So, green white checker time. I want to thank you, Keith, for producing us. I want to thank you, Lee and Richard and Louise, for being here with me every week. I want to thank Forza Motorsport, Facebook Live, YouTube Podcast, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and thank the Hoobazoo Radio Network, Sinista1 Productions. Most of all, I want to thank you folks that tuned in, and I certainly want to thank our two guests tonight, Stefan Wilson and Don Cusick. It was really wonderful to have them on. And next week, we'll have Stingray Rob, IndyCar driver, Rookie of the Year candidate. He'll be on here. It tells the origin of his name because his Stingray is his real name. So, and that's absolute fact. But until then, tune in next week and find out.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Sinista1 production.